Hi, this is Paul with Springfield Speaker, SpringfieldSpeakerRepair.com. Today, we're going to show you how to do a custom Recone on a Memphis Mojo. This is a Memphis Mojo CM12D2. It's a 15-CM12D2. We have custom kits for the CM12D2, the CM12D4, the CM15D2, and the CM15D4. This video the process is going to be identical no matter which one you're doing. We do have all those kits available. We also do have a custom dual 1 ohm version. If you really want to get the most out of your sub and you've got an amp that's going to be stable, we can get you set up with a dual 1 ohm version of this as well. These kits are available on our website, SpringfieldSpeakerRepair.com. This is obviously what the Mojo looks like. Pretty cool, you know. It's a nice custom basket, cast basket, big old heavy magnet. They're definitely worth fixing, but we do see a lot of them blown up. We've fixed a ton of them here, and we've put together this custom kit that really seems to work great in these subs. So this is what they originally look like. I'll slide this in here. This is what our custom kit looks like once it's been installed. You can kind of see the difference in the two subs. Obviously, it's not going to have your cool Memphis logo, but it's got a cool custom look to it, and it really is going to hit hard and sound great. So what we've got, when you order the kit, you're going to get a cone. This is actually a Rockford T1 cone, very tough, sturdy cone, rubber surround. It's a little bit different than your original one, but it's going to work really good, really well on this sub. It's a perfect depth. It's already set up for your 3-inch coil. In installing this, once you gut your sub, you're not going to have to adapt any of our parts at all. You're just going to have to assemble it, and this video will show you how. So we've got the cone, we've got the coil. This is for the dual 2, so this is our AVC 302D2. Your dust cap, which can be mounted as a dome or inverted the way that we inverted it here. Whichever way you like, you can do it. It looks pretty cool either way. We've got both spiders. Got a bottom spider and a top spider. They're correctly sized. They're the right stiffness. Also comes with 3,500 watt lead wires. Our CA glue, you know, sub Recone kits generally come with 1,600 watt, but we put a little bit heavier wire in this particular kit. So these are 3,500 watt leads. You're going to get, this one's already cut into 4 6-inch lengths, but you get 2 feet. This one's just already cut up. We've got shrink tube for later, for keeping our leads from grounding out on each other. Crimps. These are copper crimps. It makes connecting your leads to your coil just a little bit more foolproof, so you don't worry about having to solder. Soldering to these big, thick aluminum wires is difficult, so this helps alleviate that problem. And then, of course, you know, you've got some big old voice coil shims here. Our adhesives, we've got a CA adhesive. We've got a activator spray, which is going to activate the CA adhesive. And then we've got our BSC adhesive that we actually do the assembly of the sub with, everything but the voice coil itself. So that's our kit. I'm going to get set up here, and we're going to come back and put this thing together for you. All right, here we go. We've got our sub here. First, we're going to take off our big mounting gasket. It can be a little tricky, but it comes off. You can be rough with it. You're not going to hurt it. We're going to set that to the side for later. Okay, now if we were trying to salvage the cone and dust cap on this, which we are not, we would very carefully try and peel this surround away from the frame, but we're not going to have to mess with that today. I'm just going to go ahead and cut it. Grab my razor knife. Okay, so we cut that, and get right down in here. There's our razor knife. We want to stretch it out a little bit and get it down through the 2 spiders. This is a 2 spider sub. Cut our lead wires. Kind of tricky to reach down in there and make this cut sometimes. Now, Memphises have a problem here from time to time. We've had a few of these in here that don't really look like they're blown, and what'll happen, I mean, this coil looks outstanding, but what has happened on some of these is this bottom lip breaks, the coil begins to unstack, and it ends up rubbing some of the finish off inside, and it blows on a lower level. This is a 4-layer coil, so one of the inner layers ends up shorting out. But we don't need this at this point for our process. We've kind of got this one down a little bit, so we're little by little we're gonna get all this out of here and throw away all the crud. We're gonna take a little chisel. Oh, that one popped right off. May not even need the chisel. All right, they both popped off. These are the solder connection covers. And we're gonna set those to the side where we don't lose them, because we're gonna need to put those back later. Now you can see we've got the inside of our sub here. Pretty basic, pretty simple. We got to take all this crud and get rid of it. This is actually the old CA glue where the coil glued to the spider. It's the old bead. So we're going to get rid of all that and clean all this up. Alright, first things first, we need to clean our gap. So I'm going to make sure I've got my big wide masking tape. Get up my compressor. And we'll blow this gap out really well. Blow all the large debris out of there to make sure that it's good and clean. Hang this back up. Well, if I can. There we go. So we blow that out. And if you've seen any of our videos before, you know what we're doing now. Take our wide tape and we make a big old football. Basically, you're just taking this wide tape, you're folding it like you fold an American flag. If you were a scout, you know how to fold an American flag. You do that with the sticky side out. If you do it with the sticky side in, it doesn't do you any good. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to get right down in this gap and reach all the way to the bottom with it. So sometimes it's want to stick. So you got to wiggle it till you can reach it all the way down there. And then you're slowly going to rotate the sub. You can see we've got ours on a turntable. We like to work on a turntable. It makes everything easier. Maybe we've got some crud on there. Most everything blew out, and this particular sub, when it blew, it wasn't a violent blow, so it didn't shell out and leave chunks of stuff all down in there. This one's really easy to clean. This, all in all, this is in really good shape, so we're pretty lucky on this one. But we're gonna get that tape in there one more time. What the tape does is it grabs all the stuff that the air compressor can't blow out, such as little pieces of steel that are stuck to the magnet, things like that. But again, we really don't have anything in this sub other than a little dust. I'm gonna blow it out one more time. I tip it like this when I blow it, so it gives the crud an easier avenue to get out. Look down in our gap really good here. Grab my flashlight. Shine my flashlight down in here. And I'm going all the way around, shining that light to the bottom, making sure that pole piece is clean and that the gap is clean. This one looks good. Alright, so now we got to protect that gap. We've got it nice and clean. We got to make sure no crud gets down in there. So we're going to take our tape, as always, tape up the gap to protect it. Now you can use wide tape, skinny tape, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't use duct tape. Masking tape is good because it's just tough enough to do the job. It seals up well, and it peels up easily later without leaving a goopy residue in there like duct tape or something. So all I've really done is sealed up the gap part, made sure nothing can get in there from any direction, and we're good. We're ready to move on to the next part. I'm going to grab one of my little chisels here, and this, on this particular sub, there is a plastic trim ring that sits on top of the spider here, and we need to try and get that off of there. So I'm going to take a chisel, and these things will crack and they come out from time to time, so you got to be careful. Whew, that one doesn't want to come. Here, let me try something a little different on it. Put my razor knife under it. There we go. So we get our razor knife in there. I'm actually getting it under that and the spider and trying to pull everything up at one time. Use our thumb as a fulcrum and slowly work our way around. Okay, you can see we got the trim ring out. Now keep in mind, this is a trim ring. It's not important. It's not a vital part of your sub running properly. We have put them together without the trim ring before. It doesn't hurt anything. This is for a customer. We're just trying to make it look nice. So we're going to go ahead and get this salvage this trim ring and put it back in. But it's not important that you take great care in doing this because it doesn't have to have it. It just looks nice when it's done. You can see I did crack it. Oops. We're going to have to use some of our CA glue in our kit and glue that back together when the time comes, but for now we're just going to set it aside until we need it later. Alright, next step. We get out our chisel. Friendly neighborhood chisel. And we're going to start cleaning up this spider landing. Where the spider attaches here and where the lower spider attaches there. You've got two different size spiders that go on these two landings. So we've got to clean the residue up. We can use a chisel. We actually use a power tool. Hand me that tool there. We actually use this power tool here. It's nothing fancy. It gets the job done. We usually recommend people use a chisel because most people don't have one of these. It's a reciprocating tool with a flexible stripper. And it makes doing this job very easy. So I'm gonna clean the two spider landings with this, and we'll be back in just a second. All right, you can see we've gotten this spider stripped out. You see some of the black stuff here. That's not an issue. That is paint on the frame. You don't have to get down to bare metal here, but you do need to get all the old spider and all the old adhesive up. I got a little piece right there. Once we get all the old spider and old adhesive up, we're ready to proceed with that part. We need to get our surround off, so we'll grab our razor knife again, slip it up under here, again using this as a fulcrum. Nice thing about the rubber surround on these is you can usually get them started, and then peel them. So that one peels up pretty easily. A little bit of crud left there where I started it. So I'm going to go back with my chisel or my tool again. And I'm going to clean that up. I'll just use the chisel on this one. It's pretty simple. You can see I'm getting along this vertical lip with my chisel here. Make sure we get that last little bit of adhesive out of there. Very careful not to slip off the lip and get into your hand, because that's going to slice the crud out of you. Doesn't feel good. I've done it. I have scars to prove it. After you've gone around vertically, go around one more time horizontally and strip that little bead out of there that you just got. Got a little bit of adhesive residue left on there. Nothing too bad. soon as you get all the old rubber off there, this is the same type of adhesive as we have in our kit. This is the amber version. We're going to use the black version, but it's still the same chemical base, so it will break down what's left of the little adhesive residue on here and kind of meld it back in with the new glue and make a good clean adhesion again. Alright, now we've got this cleaned up. We're going to we've got to get our old lead wires off of there. So what we're going to do, get our soldering iron. I'm going to clean the tip a little, tin it real nice. We get our soldering iron down onto this solder. Solder doesn't always melt that quickly. This is pretty hot stuff, and the post on these particular subs is very thick. It's more like a bolt with a slot cut in it. So what we're going to do is start getting it good and heated up. Press this down on there real nice, and then while it's heating up, I'm going to melt a little additional solder on it, because that additional solder is going to transfer the heat really quickly, and it's going to melt that old solder a lot quicker than normal. So it's kind of doing it backwards. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing right here, but I'm getting it nice and hot, and I put new solder on there. As a result, hopefully, I'll be able to pull this out of here pretty quickly. We're trying to get that post that it's soldered into to heat up a little quicker. And it takes a little bit. And it's thick metal, can be very difficult to solder to. Alright, so that popped right out. Take our solder sucker. You can get these on our website. You can get these soldering irons on our website. You can get solder on our website. Anything that you need to do your repair, we should have available for you. Run our solder sucker. There we go. We're going to suck all that old solder out of there. Try and make it as clean as we can. If you zoom in here, you can see what I'm talking about how thick this is. I mean, it's a big, thick post that we're trying to work with, so it takes a minute. I'm going to do these other three, and we'll be right back. Alright, so we've got it cleaned up. Our landings are cleaned up for both spiders, the surround, and we've got our lead wires removed, desoldered. Our gap is still taped shut to protect it from any other debris or anything else flying around here. So we're going to take this, we're going to slide this out of the way. We're going to move on to the next step. Now, something we do a little bit differently than other companies might do, or than others might do. When it comes to subwoofers anyhow, we're kind of picky about doing our coils and spiders. You know, most of the time you'll mount your coil down in, and you'll shim it in place, and you've got it set, you've got your height set on your sub, and then you slip your spiders down over and glue them in place. But what we're going to do is we're going to pre-attach our spiders. It's going to make the assembly process a little easier. If this were some other sub and you were doing it from scratch, perhaps you'd do it the old way, or look for somebody that has measurements. But since we have a measurement, if you do it the way we're doing it, your sub's going to come out great. First of all, you know what? We're not even going to do that yet. I'm going to get out my crimps. Get out my 4 crimps and my 4 lead wires. So what we need to do is take each of our 4 lead wires, and we're going to attach them to these leads right here. I need my crimpers. Now, these are just cheap crimpers. They do the job for us. It's really nice to have a good set with a long handle that have some good leverage. These are cheap, but like I say, they do the job. So what you're going to do is take your lead wire, go about a 1/4 inch or an 1/8 inch from the end, and go to right near the very end of your lead and fold the tip of your lead over it like that. Get in there nice and close, you can see what I'm doing. And then you're going to pinch it on. See that? And then pinch it real tight between your thumb and forefinger and twist it just a little bit. We're just going to get about 2 wraps in there. So there's 2 wraps. It's pinched onto it, and there's 2 wraps on. We're going to do that with each one. So do it with all 4 leads. Okay, now I've got all 4 on there. What we need to do is take one of our little crimps, put it in your crimper. Take your crimper and put the U shape. See, there's a rammer and there's a seat. We're going to take the seat down. Have the flare towards you with the seat to the left, just like this. Okay? Put it down in there good. And then you're just going to slip onto these. So you can just see the wire peeking out the back. You got to run these. First of all, take the lead and the lead wire and get them next to each other. Thread it in there. Get it just peeking out the back. Give it a good pinch. Now you've got a good connection, or that's not coming apart. So we're going to do that on all 4 of them. Seat to the left. Flare up. Pinch those together where they run parallel. Slide it down on where it's just peeking out the back. Give it a pinch. Okay, I'm going to do these other 2. Okay, we've got all 4 leads crimped on there. Just going to take these leads carefully, tuck them down in there for now. Now something to keep in mind, these are thin wires here. We don't want to work them back and forth and be moving these a whole heck of a lot. So we have to gently move them and move them as little as possible when we're doing this. If we start kinking them and then straightening and kinking and straightening, they're going to break off, and then we're going to be back to square one, and we're either going to have to undo a wrap on the coil, which is impossible once this is all put back together, or we're going to have to order a new coil. And while we would love your business, we don't want you to have to do that. So we'll get that. Okay, so now I've got them in there, got them out of the way, and it's time to get our first spider on and set our height. Now you always want to put your spider on with the first roll pointing up. So with this one, you know, this one does actually fit down into our frame. This is our bottom spider. It fits down into our frame with the roll going down. So we could do it like this, but we're gonna go ahead and with this particular one and carefully slide it on over the back. You can force it, it's not going to hurt anything. Alright, so we get here. I'm going to come in here and make sure everything's even. Now we need to set our height. This is actually going to dictate the height of our coil. We're going to use our CA glue and our activator. Make sure that the tip is cleared out on your CA glue. These bottles, some of them come sealed, some of them don't come sealed, so we're going to go ahead and make sure that we clean it out so it's ready to work. Do a couple sprays of your activator to make sure that it's ready to pump when you need it. This particular coil, with our kit, you're going to mount this at 2 5/8 inches from the bottom of this bottom rib right here to the bottom of the coil. So on this particular depth gauge, that's 2 inches and 30 seconds. So 2 5/8. So we're going to slide this down till we get it to 2 5/8. When we get a spot that's 2 5/8 here, I'm going to rotate 90 degrees and adjust this to 2 5/8. Rotate another 90 degrees. Adjust this to 2 5/8. Okay. This one looks pretty good. Now we know we're at least very, very close to 2 5/8 all the way around, because we did do it at the 12, 6, 3, and 9 o'clock positions. So we'll take our CA glue and we're going to put a little bead right here. Now what we're doing is we're bottom gluing this right now. And we like to bottom glue them. We'll put a little bead there, a little spray. We're going to rotate it 180 degrees. Check our height again. Make sure it's 2 5/8. It is. We'll do a little bead there. Give it a little spray. I'm going to go halfway between the two. Check for 2 5/8. Oop. And now when we hold this, we're not holding it by the spider because that's going to throw our measurement off. We got our fingers inside the coil and we're pinching the coil here to hold it. And then we can make adjustments by pushing this way or rolling our thumb this way. So we can make our adjustments to the right measurement. If you've got a tape measure, it's going to look more like this. And you're just going to push to 2 5/8. You can see right there it's 2 5/8. Hold it there. Put a little bead there. Oop, I did 2 sprays. You only need 1 there. Check our 2 5/8 one more time over here. Looks pretty good. I'm going to do a spray there. Okay, so now we've got it tacked in place all the way around. We know that our height is even. Anywhere we go here, it's going to be 2 5/8 inches from the bottom of the bottom ribs to the bottom of the coil former, which is exactly where we need it to be. So we're doing good there. Now that we know we've got it right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a top bead all the way in this little seam here between the coil and the spider. We're going to fill that with CA glue all the way around. Doesn't got to be a ton, just a nice little bead to make sure that we get a little bit of glue, a good contact between both surfaces. We do want these leads flat against this former, and you're going to see why in just a moment. Okay, we've got a bead all the way around. A few sprays to start it curing. And that's going to hold it in place. Now we've got our depth set on our core. So this is an important step to get to. Now back to the leads. I said we want them flat against there. So what we're going to do is make sure these leads point straight up. Again, be very gentle. And you want to kind of press them flat against the former. You see this good here? You're going to go vertically up from where they are and press them flat against the former. You can see you've got 2 out each side. You've got a positive and a negative and a positive and a negative. So they're all set to go. Once we get those nice and flat against there, we're now going to get our glue there and we're going to squeeze it a little bit hard so a little bit squishes under there. We're just going to tack these down. We don't want them moving around, so we'll get a little bit of glue on each side of that, and we're getting these contacts glued down to the former. These are actually a coil that we use for something else, and it works so well in this Memphis that we like to build with this. So this particular coil was made for your leads to come out in between your spiders rather than above, but the way we're going to do this install of this kit, we want them to come out through the inside of the cone. So we need to tack them here. That'll keep them from vibrating in the future. Okay, so now we've got a core built. You know, we've still got another spider to go. Obviously we've got our cone and dust cap to go, but we're going to set this aside for a moment, put the top on our CA glue, set it off to the side, and pull our sub back over where we're ready to get some work done on it. Okay, so now we've got, you can see we've got our gap, and you can see where this tape has a lot of crud stuck to it. Luckily, you know, we leave a little bit exposed, and it catches some of the stray garbage that's in there. Blow this out just a little bit more. Get those last couple pieces of glue and trash out of there. And then we're going to take this and we're just going to carefully peel this up. Move slowly. You don't want to move too fast, and you don't want to slide your fingers on the sticky part where there might be some crud or some residue, because if you're sliding your fingers there, you could dislodge something from the tape and make it fall down in there. Now luckily we're working on an aluminum speaker here. The only thing really steel on this are the bolts and the pole piece, so we don't have to worry about any of our metal shavings or anything damaging the speaker. Because it is aluminum, it's non-magnetic, and we can easily get it out of the gap when we need to. Alright, so now we're going to repeat what we did earlier. We're going to blow this out. Get it blown out really well. And take my flashlight, and I'm going to look down in here again, shine that light directly down in, make sure it's still as clean as we remember it to be from earlier, and it is. It looks good. So, normally I'd make another football here, clean it out again, but I really don't think I need to. Our gap really looks great. It looks clean. I mean, it's shiny. This sub is in very, very good condition. So, here we are. We're going to do a test fit. And take our leads here, and again, try not to bend these little leads too much. Just work with the lead wires, the braided leads, and we're going to slip those out of there for now. There we go, so that we can do this. Now, remember, we got 2 contacts here, 2 here, so we've got 2 leads here, 2 leads here. So we're going to set it down in there, lining these up, and you're going to see that these are a perfect fit right down into this basket. This spider is just awesome. It's a perfect bottom spider for this sub. Perfect fit, perfect stiffness. It's very nice. So we do a little test fit, line it up. Everything looks pretty good. Looks like we're going to be just fine. These are 10 mil shims. We put 8 in this kit for a reason, and I'll show you that in a minute. But we're going to go to the next steps. We're going to carefully lift this out of here, set it to the side. We're going to get out our black BSC adhesive, shake it up real good as we always do, and now we're going to go through here and we're going to put a bead of adhesive all the way around this lower lip, not this upper one, but the lower lip only. So we'll start with that. Ooh, I shook it and she wanted to squirt out of there on me. So we don't need, there are brushes in the kit. Usually, if we don't include brushes, don't panic. We don't use the brushes for anything. So, in fact, in this kit, for that reason, I don't think we even include the brushes. Just use the tip of your bottle, just like you did spreading glue, Elmer's glue in kindergarten. You do not need the brushes. They just complicate things. So you're using the tip of your bottle to spread your glue, just squeezing gently. You get a little bit all the way around. Again, the turntable makes this really handy. If you don't have a turntable, try and do it on a smooth surface where your speaker can rotate without hanging up on anything. Okay, so now we've got some adhesive in there. Clean up our bottle a little bit. Put the top back on for later. So we've got a bead of adhesive. We're going to let that breathe just for a second. Add a little bit more here. What we're doing is, this is a solvent-based adhesive. We're letting that solvent that's in here evaporate and etch its way into the metal just a little bit. And as the solvent evaporates, it's going to leave nothing but extremely sticky, pure rubber. And so you're going to end up with a surface where you have rubber that has been etched into the metal and into the spider. It's been etched in, and it's just super strong and flexible, and it's pure rubber when all said and done. So now we're going to take this, and we're not going to mash it down in there. Remember, line up your leads, good, but we're gently just setting it in there first. We don't want to push it down into the glue really until we put in our spiders now, or our shims. Now I'm going to show you. I'm going to take one shim, put it down each of the 4 main clock positions. We're going to go 6, 12, 3, and 9 with shims. Now, this is not going to be tight. In this end product, the shim is not going to be tight and immobile. That's okay. But we're getting it evenly spaced. That's by far the most important thing. So we'll take, and then we're going to overlap and take these seams and have those as the middle of each shim. So the next shim will go here. But what we're going to have to do is hold hold these other shims in place while we push this down, because these shims aren't quite long enough to get to the bottom. You don't want to just press and mash them down in there and have the shims go all the way down in there, because then you're going to be pulling this out to dig shims out of there. You don't want to have to do that. So we're going to set it like this to start with, and then once we get all our shims in, we'll slide them all down until they're sticking up maybe a ½ inch above the pole piece. So let me insert all these real quick. A lot easier when you're not trying to tilt and hold the sub. So I'm holding the one on each side and using this finger to slide the new one down on. Maybe you can see it here. I hold this one over here and this one over here, and then I slide the shim down in. Okay, now we've got all 8 shims in there, and we're just going to press them down till they're maybe 3/4 of an inch high off the pole piece, something like that, and that's going to give us a good, make sure that our coil is nice and straight and centered on that pole piece. Now, we can take anything here. You can use the butt of a pick or a chisel. A chisel works well. You can use the butt of a screwdriver. We use the butt of a Sharpie for a lot of stuff around here. I'll just use the butt of the Sharpie today and kind of show you what I mean. But we've got everything. Make sure your leads line up nice and straight with your contacts. Rotate it so it's right. And we're just going to take, and we're going to press that down. And you can see what's happening is we're pressed down into the glue, and it's making the glue squish right up through the spider, so it's soaking through the spider. That's what we want. We want this thing pushed down nice and hard. Get this thing to really soak, get that to soak through the spider and get seated. So now we're at this point. This is good. We're seated. We're ready to go on to the next step. We're actually going to let this sit probably about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes to tack up, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we've let this sit about 10 minutes. In the meantime, I prepped my trim ring, got it cleaned up and glued back together where I cracked it. Take these, and we're going to carefully tuck them back inside. We need these out of the way now until it's time to actually run them through the cone. So we're now safe to set these down in. I'm trying not to kink them completely over the edge of the coil, because I don't want to, you do that enough times, I don't want to get a weak spot. So I'm being very gentle. And trust me, I have broken off these leads. It's very frustrating having to start all over on a sub. So you got to be gentle and very careful with these. Okay, so now we're ready. We've got our next spider. Our top spider goes in right here. We're going to carefully just test fit that, slip it down over, hold our coil from moving too much. And again, we always want the outer ring of our spider, the outer roll, to point up. So that's what we've done here. This is actually a 3/8 inch cup spider. It comes up a little, whereas the last one was a flat spider and it just is flat. This raises up off of the landing. Get in here, and we're just doing a test fit. We can see it fits perfectly down in our frame. We're going to test fit our trim ring. Our trim ring will glue down very nicely over the top of that when we're ready. So we are almost to our stopping point for the day, where we let this thing really set up for the night. So I'm going to take this back off of here, hold the coil in place, slip this spider out, and we're going to now take our BSC glue. We're going to glue the top lip here. Shake it up a little bit. Be ready, because it will start bubbling out of the end like that right after you shake it. And we're going to put our top bead on. I'm just going to spin it and squish a good bead on there to start. And then come back and spread it a little bit. Move a little bit faster this time so we don't tack up too much before we're ready to put our spider on. Because this spider we actually are going to put on, and then when we put our trim ring on, we need this glue to soak through to grab our trim ring as well. So we want it to still be a little squishy. So we've got a good bead on there. We'll check it, make sure it's pretty even all the way around. Pretty heavy. Not super heavy, but we do need a little bit of it on there. So now we're in pretty good shape. Alright. So now this, we need to set that to the side. We'll get our spider, set it down over, and we're going to push this on. So push this down in place. Looks great. There's nothing to line up because our leads are still lined up because they're glued to the bottom spider. So we're just going to do that. Do a little twist of the spider. As we push down, we do a little twist back and forth. And that's going to really bring that adhesive up through it. I'm going to just take a pick at this point, and I'm going to press this down into that adhesive and let that adhesive really squish up through there real nice. This is where a turntable comes in handy. We press that down in there. It's getting stringy and nasty already, so we got to be careful with that. Now, I've got my trim ring. So we're going to take, while this glue is, we need to do this while the glue under the spider is still wet. If we glue this and then we come back, you know, in a couple hours when that glue has started to really set up and we put glue over the top, the solvent in the top glue is going to break up the rubber in the bottom and you're going to lose your bond. So you want to do this while the bottom glue is still wet. Anytime you're double layer gluing this stuff, you really want to do it all at one time. I don't know if I explained that right. I hope it makes sense. Long story short, do it while it's still wet if you have more gluing to do. Alright, so I've got a little bead there. So now the glue that has soaked up through the spider is mixing with this glue. Everything's going to be one good bead of glue. Good bead of rubber adhesive. Set our trim ring down on there. Gently press it in place. And now we can let this kind of breathe for a few seconds while we move on to the next step. But you can see what we've done here. We've now got our core in place. We've got our beauty ring back down on. When all said and done, this is going to look like a factory repair. It's going to be very nice. Well, much like the one I showed you earlier. So we've got that. Now there's a couple different things we can do here. We can use clamps. These don't have much of a lip to clamp to here, but it can be done. You clamp it if you can get them to stay on there and clamp this ring down. It is difficult. You can, like on these type of clamps, they have these little swinging tips. I like to use those and then use that to hold this down in place. Got to be careful not to push that spider, however. The point here is to try and get it to stick. It's tricky. And what I'm showing you here, the reason I'm showing you this is I'm going to show you another solution that we have. You can use a coffee can or a bowl. Both are very similar. This is actually a bowl that we use to trim Boston 8-inch Boston foam so it fits down into the recessed frame. It happens to be just right. Anything with an 8-inch diameter is going to work great. So you can see we set it down on here, so it's actually pressing down on the ring. It's not pressing down on the spider. It's not pressing down on adhesive, so this isn't going to get glued to anything. It's just setting on the ring. We're going to take that and then we're going to put a little weight on it. One thing I like to use a lot of the time is another speaker. We happen to have this little Rockford sub here. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to use this as a weight. It's nice that this bowl is stainless steel too, because the magnet in the speaker that we put on top isn't going to stick to it. Now this does a couple different duties here. This is the weight and pressure that this is putting on is pressing that trim ring, that beauty ring, down into the adhesive, so it's really going to dry up good and strong and be there for a good long time. The other thing that it's doing is our bowl is covering our coil gap, because what we're going to do right now, we're going to let this thing sit for probably 2 or 3 hours to really start and set up really well. We need the core, the adhesive of our core, which is our spiders and coil, to really set up well before we move on to the next step. So right now we're protecting our gap. Nothing's going to fall down in there because we got a bowl on it. Plus we're pressing our trim ring down. This keeps everything good and safe. Again, you could use clamps to try and clamp that ring down. It's a little tricky, but it can be done. And then maybe you take a little bowl and you just put it over your voice coil to cover it. In this case, we're just going to use this, serve double duty, and we're going to come back in a few hours. Frankly, it's the end of the day here, so I'm going to come back in the morning, and we're going to finish this thing up. Alright, so while we're letting that set up overnight, first thing we're going to do real quick is we're going to take our cone, flip it over, and this edge right here on this rubber surround, we need to scuff it up a little bit to make sure that it takes well. You can do this with just about any sandpaper. We use a drywall sanding sponge for a lot of this stuff. It works very well. All we're doing is scuffing that rubber up really good to make sure that our adhesive and the solvent in our adhesive can break it down a little bit and really make a good bond with our frame. Anytime you go to glue rubber to something, you really need to scuff the rubber. I don't know if you've ever patched an inner tube on your bicycle when you were a kid. It's the same concept. Scuff up the rubber so the adhesive can do its job. I think that this one is scuffed up pretty good. I'm going to finish this up. We're going to come back tomorrow and take the top off of this sub and finish it up. Alright, we've let this dry overnight. I'm going to lift this off of here and set it to the side. Get it out of our way. Lift our bowl off. Alright, now we've got our core is done. Our core is in. The glue has had overnight to cure. When we're all done, we're going to make sure and let this thing set for 24 to 36 hours. These big subs we usually let sit for at least 36 hours, but we're going to make sure and do that once we're all done. So this will have additional curing time before it ever gets a signal to it. So now we'll take our cone, which we scuffed up last night, and we'll set it on. You can see it's a perfect fit. Now don't be worried about the fact that it's only grabbing a little bit of this frame. All of this mounting lip is grabbing the frame, and that's what's important. So it's a perfect fit right on there. We're gonna kind of seat it, make sure it looks good. This really is coming together nicely. So now that we know that that's going to be good, we'll lift it back off. And what we need to do is we need to glue the spider to the cone. But what we're going to do here is kind of different. We need to move fairly quickly. We're going to glue the spider to the coil former and to the cone. So we need to move kind of quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a nice bead. I don't know if you can see down in here. We're going to put a nice bead of glue, of CA glue, right here where the coil and the spider meet. You'll see a little groove there between the inner ring. I don't know if you can see that or not, but between the inner ring and the former, right here, there's a little groove. We're going to fill that groove with CA glue all the way around, and we're going to move fairly quickly. The turntable comes in very handy here. While that's still wet and before we ever spray our accelerator on it, we're going to spray a little accelerator on the cone, and then we're going to squish it right down into that glue. And what it's going to do is it's going to serve a little bit of a double duty. It's going to seal the spider to the coil former as well as sealing the spider to the cone. And then, of course, we'll come back in from the inside and glue the cone to the former. So we're going to do that real quick. Make sure our spider is nice and even. It looks great. Clear out our tip a little bit. Make sure our tip is clear. Grab a paper towel, clean it off, get all the crusties off of there. And we're ready to go. So I'm going to just put a bead on there. And that's ready to go. And I'm going to spray my cone here. Don't spray over that or it will cure that too quickly. And we quickly put that down on there. Put it in there nice and straight, nice and even all the way around. Then we can come under here and do 2 sprays in each hole. Ought to do it. Each opening in the frame in between the M's of Memphis there. So that has begun to set up. Now we're rocking. We're going to take and let that settle up, and we're going to come back in about 5 minutes. Okay, so we've got our cone glued down. Again, it's sealed from below. It's not sealed down in here yet, and it's not We're not glued to the frame yet. We're going to wait to glue to the frame. We've got a few other steps to make. We're going to take our dust cap. This particular one you can mount as a dome, or you can mount inverted. Just depends how you want to do it. We're going to mount it inverted. Either way, it doesn't really matter for this next step, because no matter which way you put it, it's still going to measure out the same. We're going to get it in where it's nice and centered. And, well, that's weird. It's actually nice and centered. You can spin it and watch your, kind of blur your eyes a little bit and watch the line between the surround and the edge of the cap. And you can see if that line gets wider and narrower, but it just happened to fall in there perfectly centered. That's beautiful. So I'm going to hold it in place. Take a pencil. Carefully trace all the way around. Alright. Now we've got a line. See the pencil line? Now we know what area we have to work with, and realize that when you glue this in, you're probably going to use, a little bit of this area, ½ inch, maybe a little more for gluing down to this surface. So we need to stay at least a ½ inch below this line, and we know that we can work down in there. So next step, we're going to take a pick or an awl or just about anything. I'm going to use this pick here. It's kind of like a scratch awl. And we need to see where our wires are. You can see we have 2 wires here, and then we have 2 wires here. We're going to go about 1 inch above those wires and about 1 inch apart. And we're going to poke some holes with this through there. You know what? I'm going to show you another little trick, because these are Kevlar infused pulp cones. They're wicked, wicked strong cones. We're going to do this. This is our soldering iron. And clean it up a little bit. And then instead of using the scratch awl, we are going to use this to burn holes. That is a wicked, wicked cone. Kind of mash your finger on that back side, make sure it's not on fire. So I went 1 inch above there, and about 1 inch above there. We're going to be lined up pretty well, kind of getting a visual with our contacts here. If you can see the contacts down below, you can see what we're lining up with. And these are for our lead wires to go through. Burn that second hole. Hit the back. Try not to put water on it or anything. If you catch fire, you're going to have to squirt a little water or something on there. But we're going to try and avoid that, because we don't want to break down this paper at all. Get our other one. I'll get this other one. All right, we've got all 4 of our holes spaced up 1 inch off of our coil, and about 1.5 inches apart. It's going to give us good clearance. So now, next step, we're very carefully, again, we got to be gentle with these. We're going to pull our lead wires up and out of here. Get our tinsels clear. Okay. Now, see if you can see this. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to twist this just a little bit and let that lead wire twist around the tinsel lead as such. So if you see, you can see it's wrapped around the tinsel lead now. So it comes out of here, wraps around the tinsel lead, and then I tuck it down into that little gap there in between the coil former and the cone. And I'm going to do that on all 4 of them. So spin this around so it goes the right direction. Very gently give it a twist. 1 twist, 2 twists, whatever it takes to get it down close like that. And then we'll tuck it down in. Alright, I'm going to do that on all 4 and I'll be right back. Okay, we've got all 4 of them done. They're tucked. Now we're just going to take these leads, gently poke them through the holes in your cones that you just made with your soldering iron. And pull them through. Make sure when you go to snug them up, pulling on the outside, you hold this this crimp down in place so it doesn't move. We really need it to hold its position. Tuck all 4 of them. Do the same thing. Okay, we've got all 4 of them tucked. Looks nice and pretty and even. Everything looks good. Now we're going to get out our CA glue again. And basically we're going to glue all this down. We need to make sure that we get the crimps glued down into there. So an easy way to do that, take your glue, stick it at the butt here, hold this in place, and squeeze it down underneath there. There, it starts to come. You get some that shoots down underneath, and then shoot some down underneath from the other side. And you can see there that it's coming in from this side, it's coming in from that side. Now we've got that laying in a bed of CA glue. So that's good. We're going to do that on all 4 of them. Both sides of it. That turntable sure is handy. If you're not doing this on a turntable, I think you're causing yourself more grief. Our turntables are actually very simple. They're Lazy Susan bearings from a cabinet that you get from a cabinet builder, and Lazy Susan bearings, and we've just put a half-inch of MDF on, half-inch thick MDF, cut into a 12-inch circle on top. Screw them down, put some rubber feet on them, make them portable. We can move them anywhere, and they work anywhere we go. Very handy to work with. You could even use, technically, you could use a turntable from a record player if you got an old record player. Okay, so I've got all 4. Now we're going to get a bead of CA all the way around this coil. We're not worried as much about it leaking out because we did a bead of CA when we seated the cone. So therefore, we sealed the bottom edge. So right now we filled that up with CA, and we shouldn't have any CA leaking out the bottom onto the spider. And when I look, we don't. We've got a nice clean seam under there. So we let that settle a second. Come on. Forgot to do a test spray. Okay, so we get a couple sprays on there. Let that start to set up. I'm going to top coat it one more time. This time we're going to get a little coat over the top of our crimps. You got to monitor it though, and make sure that you don't let glue run down into your voice coil gap. Don't let it run down the inside of the coil former. If you let it run down inside there, it's going to glue your coil shut, and then you're screwed. So we don't want to do that. All right, that's going to set up real nice. I'm going to grab another tool here. I'm just going to grab a 90-degree pick here because I have a little issue that has formed. In fact, I'm going to grab something else. This is a dental tool. You can see what's happened here from me moving the cone in and out. My shims have slipped down a little bit. Remember in the beginning I said you got to be careful not to lose them down inside. So I'm going to grab them with the sharp tip of this tool and slide them back up. So our shims keep our voice coil centered, but we don't lose them down inside. Ideally, our shims would be taller, and by the time you buy one of these kits from us, chances are they will have taller shims in the kit, so it'll be a non-issue. We've been fixing these for a while, but we just now made this kit available to the public. So chances are we're going to have some nice tall shims in there. You don't have to worry about that being an issue. But me, I do, unfortunately. Okay, so our center bead is done. Everything's glued in, everything's glued down. We've sprayed our accelerator on it, everything's curing. Now we need to dress our leads. Easiest way to do that is we're going to take the tip of our bottle, and we're going to put it right up against that hole. Can you see that? Right up against the hole where the wire goes in. We're going to squirt some right down into there and then run it down the wire. Like this. Fill the hole and then run it down each side of the wire. Get a good coating on there. And do this on all four. The whole point is to not only pad but anchor, I should say not only anchor but pad these lead wires so that when your sub hits, these aren't vibrating like crazy inside there. If they're vibrating and smacking into stuff inside there, they are going to break. Once they break, then you're in a rather pain in the butt repair to make. So if we do this right the first time, we can get them glued down well with a bit of padding in there. You can use black CA glue. You'll see a lot of sub guys use black CA glue. We use a lot of black CA glue here as well, but honestly the clear does the exact same thing. The difference in the black is that it has rubber additive, so it's rubberized and it's a little more flexible, but it's super glue. You don't want flexibility. You don't want flexibility in this joint at all. You don't want any of this stuff to move. So I'm of the opinion that clear is not only just as good for the fact that it's not flexible at all, it could potentially be better than the black rubberized stuff. We do have the black rubberized stuff, and if you decide you want some in your kit, you can contact us. The price of the kit goes up a little bit. You can call us, order by phone, and we can make sure we'll increase the price a little bit, but we'll give you black CA glue instead of clear if that's your preference. But honestly, it's overkill. Alright, so we've got it in there. Our leads are run. They're done. I'm going to meter this real quick and then see how it meters out. I got a meter here. A little cheapy meter, but it'll do the trick. Set it on 200 ohms. Check it. That one is 2.0 exactly. This coil is 1.9. Still good. Excellent. So, we're good here. Next step, we're going to go like this. And in fact, in the interest of time, I'm going to show you something else that we're going to do too. When we go to glue down our dust cap, we're going to put a bead all the way around there and a bead under this line, about 1/8 of an inch under that line, all the way around. I'm going to take a piece of tape, roll it up. Doesn't even have to be fancy, it's just got to be a wad with a sticky side, and that makes a handle for our dust cap. Just stick it on there and we've got a handle for our dust cap for setting it down in place and gluing it down when the time comes. So, a little preview there. But first, we need to solder our leads. Now we've got our positive and negative leads running on both sides, positive and negative. We've got more than enough here to work with to avoid the problem of these shorting out in the future against each other. We're going to take our leads, we're going to cut them in half. Now we send 6-inch leads here, and we send 6 inches of each color so that you cut it into 2 3-inch pieces. You're going to have plenty of shrink tube. Now the 2 3-inch pieces, just the way they are, once you cut them like this, should be about perfect for the 15-inch. For the 12-inch, however, you're going to take about an additional 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch off each one. Take that off all 4. So yeah, you're wasting a little bit, but that's no big deal. You bought it, it's yours to waste. So, got those. I'll tip this up on edge and show you what I'm doing here. Can you see in there? Okay, positive, negative. So we're going to mark them. Take and do a little cut here, nice and tight, to get a nice clean cut. Take our shrink tube. This can be a little bit of a pain because this shrink tube is only slightly larger than these big old lead wires. There we go. We'll kind of thread it on there a little bit. Get it going. Slide it all the way up. Do that with your red. You don't have to pre-cut it, but if you have a problem with this step, if you pre-cut it, it'll give you a nice clean edge. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-cut it. Give me a little point. If you cut it at a little bit of an angle, you get a little bit of a point you can start threading it in there with. And there we go. Now you usually do this, the shrinking of this shrink tube, with a heat gun. I'm not a big fan of using a real heat gun around subs a whole heck of a lot. I can't say that using an open flame is much better, but I'm going to do that today. Got my lighter here. You just kind of need to keep an eye on it. I don't know, can you get in there? Can you see what I've got? See, I got my positive and my negative. They're butted right up to the holes in the cone. And I'm just going to take my lighter. A grill lighter works good because it's got the long tip. And you're just going to carefully run down it. You don't want to hold it on it too long. An open flame is going to shrink this tube really fast. Make sure you don't light anything on fire or burn your fingers like I just did. And I'm going to do again, because I'm doing this at an angle so I can show you how it's done. Alright, those are shrunk on. I can see the texture of the braid coming through. So there's our lead wires. They're protected, ready to go. We've got to solder them down onto here. We're going to put a small arc in each one as we do that. And you'll see where we cut our lead wire shrink tube, we've got just enough. See if you can see in here. We've got just enough where we can arc it and hold it in place right there. Maybe about a 1/4 inch from the end of the shrink tube, and we're going to have a perfect arc in our lead wire. So that's why we've got this folded up, so we can clean our tip and get our solder. I'm going to heat up and get some solder on here. You want to hold this rubber out of place or out of the way so you don't melt it with the stem on your soldering iron. Start bubbling that solder up. I'm gonna do this. You don't have to watch this whole thing, but I'm gonna get this nice and hot, and then I'm gonna solder these in place, and we'll come back when I'm done with that. All right, okay, we're back. You can see right here we got our leads soldered and trimmed. Trim off the excess, and then we've got our little caps here that we took off of the top. We need to glue those in place. So we're just going to take our CA glue, put a little bead of it, well, kind of thick. Put a tiny little bit right there. Don't glue your fingers together. Slide that in place. Make sure it's right. Give it a quick little shot. Little shot of spray. That's ready. Okay, now our core is done. Our lead wires are done. Ready to glue down our cone. And then we're going to pull our shims, glue down our dust cap, and we'll be done. So next thing we're going to do, while we've still got our surround folded up like this, we're going to take our black adhesive, and we're just going to put a bead right here in between the edge of the frame and the hole. I don't know if you can see that or not, but edge of the frame and the hole, we're going to fill this area right here with a little bead, because here, I'll just show you real quick. Where the way this cone falls on one of these frames is right there. Butts right up to that hole all the way around. So we're going to put that bead right there, and we'll be rocking. So run that bead. Now, a lot of builders use CA glue here. We do not. CA glue, if it starts to let loose, it continues to let loose. This is rubber. This stuff remains flexible, which is just fine on a frame. So remember, we had to scuff the underside of our cone as we did earlier in the video, so that this solvent-based glue will take really well for us. It's okay if you're a little bit sloppy with this. It doesn't have to be perfect, because when we're done, we're going to put our trim ring back on the outside, our big rubber gasket that slides on, and it's going to be just beautiful. Alright. Got a good bunch of adhesive there. We let it tack up for just a second. We don't got to worry about doing a centering process or adjusting or anything here like we do a lot of times because we do have our shims are still in there, so we're in good shape. So go ahead and start folding this down. It's going to fall perfectly in place. Rest it right there in the adhesive. Now we can use clamps here to hold these down. It's one alternative. There's a couple different ways we can do this. We can take our clamps and clip them on. If we didn't get too crazy with the cheese whiz here, the glue won't be everywhere, so we can clip it down flat like that, clamp it, and we can hold it right where we want it. Don't want that surround to slide at all when we're doing it. Let's go ahead and get some more of these clamps out. Give me just a second. Thank you. And I'm just putting them at 6, 12, 9, and 3. And then we're going to fill in the blanks here with one more in between each, just to make sure this seats right down in that adhesive. Don't let your the edge of your surround move when you're clamping it. If it moves in or out, that's going to throw things off, so we want it to stay right where it's at. So we're going to push the clamp up underneath the lip first and then rest it down in place so the rubber doesn't move. There we go. I'll grab just a couple more just to make sure we get this thing on here good and straight. It looks like it's holding it down pretty well. There we go. Alright, so we're going to get this clamped. We're going to let this sit for a few hours before we mess with it too much further. And then we'll be ready to pull our shims, glue down our dust cap, put on our outer rubber gasket, and give her a test run. So I think we're done for the time being. We're just going to sit back and let this do its thing. We're in the very, very final stretch of this. Once this dries, we glue our dust cap down in place. I'll show you how to do that here in the next little segment. We'll pull these off, put on our outer ring, and we're done. So it's been a pretty good build. This one is very pretty up under there. I think we really did a nice job. It's going to sound great. These things just stomp. So we'll be back shortly when we've let this set up for a few hours. Thanks. Alright, so we've let this sit a few hours. We're going to get our shims out of here, get our clamps off, get our dust cap glued in, put on our rubber mounting grommet, and we'll be done. So first things first, you can see we've got all our shims down in here. I'm going to pull those out. Make sure you count them. If you used all the ones in the kit, you used 8. Some places that you can get parts from will send you one single shim. That works great too. Whatever works for you. Our kit has 8 of these. They're 10 mil thick, 2 inches by 4 inches, and they get the job done. So we got those out. Our voice coil is nice and centered. Everything's good and stiff. This thing is ready to pound. So now we're good there. Take a couple of these off, get them out of the way. In fact, we'll just go ahead and pull them all off. Alright, we've got that. Time to get our dust cap ready. I'm going to push this back out of the way. Our dust cap, we need to just sand this, scuff it up a little bit. Again, we use a sanding sponge. Kind of use this where you've got 2 sides working for you. Get one that's working good there. So you can sand both sides of the lip at the same time. Now, if you were going to mount it this way, you'd obviously sand this side of the lip. But I'm going to mount it upside down, inverted. So we're going to get the back side a little bit. Scuff it up. We've got this thing all scuffed up. I dusted it off real nice. There's no more no powder or dust or anything on it. We'll pull our sub back in. Get out our black glue after a good shake. Alright. Now we're going to take and we're going to fill this little recess all the way around with the black glue. Alright, I got pretty much the rest of my black glue I've used to goop on here. You got to let it breathe a little bit, let it thicken up and get tacky. And I've got it on here. I'm spreading it out real good. I filled the little lip on the bottom side, and put a little bit down the back side. See, it's really starting to tack up good now. Wicked stuff. Alright, I set that to the side just for a second and let it breathe just a little bit more. Wipe my fingers off here so I can work with semi-clean hands. This is a mess. Alright. Alright, we have our little handle that we made stuck to the dust cap right there, that we can set this thing down in place. Now earlier, remember, we made a pencil line to trace all the way around. We're going to use that as our guide. Get one side lined up. Watch the thing go down. Get it in place. Hold it down tight while we pull up our tape. Throw that away. And then basically I'm just going to set this big old roll of masking tape on there. And a speaker. This is a little 4-inch subwoofer. I'm just using that for a little weight to hold this thing down while the adhesive dries. Now we're going to leave it like this for a couple hours, let that dry, let it set up really good before we take it off. Then we're going to stick our rubber grommet on. Alright, here we go. I've removed our weight. Our dust cap is in, it's cured, it's been just a couple hours. We're going to go ahead and put on our big old grommet. Threads on, start with one hole, and just slowly thread it on. Oop, oop. Slowly thread it on all the way around. And that, do a little adjustment. You have to do a little adjusting, line your holes up perfect. And there we have it. That is Memphis Audio 15 CM12D2. Exact same process works for the CM12D2, the 12D4, the 15D2, and the 15D4. Again, we can also do a custom dual 1 ohm version. Just contact us if you want a kit like that. The 15D2, 15D4, 12D2, and 12D4 kits are available on our website at springfieldspeakerrepair.com. If you have any questions any other time, you can give us a call at 1-800-397-9575. That's 800-397-9575, springfieldspeakerrepair.com. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.